Okay, what we have is the other shaft problem that we're having with our gearbox is the retainer ring behind the bearing pressure's been being put on it and breaking the ring. The first thing that we did was widen the groove a little bit and put in a little bit thicker ring. As you can see, this is the ring that we put in. And in doing so, with the Dremel cutting on here, which I'll be showing you in a minute, I actually cut the groove a little too deep. But I wasn't really happy with the thickness of the ring, plus it fit a little bit too loose in the slot. So what I have found is I found a heavy-duty ring, and you can see how much thicker this ring is from the other one that we're putting in. And it's also a much deeper purchase. So what we're going to do is set it down into the deeper groove and also widen the groove for this to fit in. Let me show you. Here we have the groove itself on the shaft. This ring has been regrooved to fit in here, but it's got a little bit of a sloppy fit, and it should fit just a little bit better than that. You can see it fits just a little sloppy in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this thicker ring, as you can see here, into this groove. But you see the groove isn't thick enough for the ring. We can't cut on this side of the groove because the bearing that goes on here goes up against this shoulder just like this one here does. So it can't go on any further. If we have it go on further, then the seal rings that we have installed in the case to lock the shaft will no longer line up. So that is not an option. So what we have to do is widen this groove just enough to put this retainer ring in. Here's how we're going to do it. We have a Dremel tool, which is right here. Okay. We have gotten into the Dremel tool kit and gotten out a little wheel. It's like a cutting wheel. This cutting wheel is going to be coming in here on the Dremel, and with the lathe turning backwards, we're going to cut with this very slowly, but we also have to have an angle to it so that we don't want to round or taper the shaft this way, because if we do, then the ring might tend to pop out under pressure. We want a nice straight cut. So we're going to try to cut this back just enough to get this ring to fit nice and snug. And in doing so, we're also going to take this end piece and we're going to make this almost the same diameter or thickness as this ring. That might hinder us a little bit and put undue stress on the shaft, but I'm pretty sure that this will be a complete fix since we've put a retaining ring here in the case. That'll help take some of the pressure off this. Between the two of them, I'm hoping this will actually cure the problem. So now I'm going to attempt to set this up so that you can see this being cut with the Dremel tool. And we're going to attempt now to do this little regrooving. Turn the lathe on backwards. Turn the Dremel on. And we're going to very slowly It has to be done very slowly so that we don't overcut it. And we have to be careful not to go too deep, because if we do, then this is going to slop in the hole back and forth this way. What we're going to do is just going to keep cutting until we can fit it in. Okay, you can see now that we've got this in place. We get the ring back on. We've been working on this, and we got this so that it fits down into the slot. As it goes in, it's supposed to be tapered in so that as it goes in, it tightens. So now we're going to reassemble the bearing onto here with the press, put the ring back on, and see how it fits. Okay, here we have set the press back up to put the bearing back on. The bearing has to go onto the shaft with the lock ring facing the bottom of the shaft. So we've set up the jig to set this in here like this. I'm going to start pressing down in, get it started, make sure it does not cock sideways, because if it does, it's going to jam. So we're just going to just start to, there it goes. I'm going to press this down in until it hits the bottom of this spacer block. And then we're going to have to turn it over to press it the rest of the way. That's the bottom right there. Lift this back up. Okay, now we have to take this over. And we have to find something to go over that shaft to fit on here. So here we're using a socket as a spacer. But another thing that we have for a problem is this shaft will probably get down through this hole. So what we're going to do is take one of these blocks off. We're going to put this lined up with the shaft. We're going to line this up with the shaft like this. Oh, it looks like it won't get down through. So it looks like it's going to go just fine. So we're going to center this, and we're going to push this now as a punching block. Let's go down until it hits the shelf. We put it down to a few pounds of pressure. Make sure that the block inside the bearing is tight against the shelf. I'm going to relax it. And that should expose the ring groove for the lock ring to go back in on this side of the bearing. Now, if the groove is too tight for this to go in, we may have to shave this part of the bearing a little bit, or take this part of the shelf, so we may have to press this back apart. When it's all done and we get the lock ring back in, we'll show you how it fits. Okay, we have finally got the ring all the way down inside that groove so that it's fitting nice and snug and tight. What we ended up having to do is actually shave the ring a little bit because it was getting so thin on the end of the shaft. We didn't want to take a chance on cutting it out any further. Because the ring was so thick, decided to shave it down by turning it sideways and taking a file and just shaving it off a little bit at a time until it would fit inside that groove nice and tight. So now we have repaired the box completely by having a notched lock ring on both front and rear bearing. We've widened the notch back here of the slot to accommodate a thicker, heavier duty ring. Now all we have to do is build the shaft and we are ready to go.